Let's get a divorce. Ron Gu said these words without a trace of emotion in his expression, as if we weren't a couple married for 3 years, but two complete strangers with no connection. He didn't know I had been reborn, in my past life. I foolishly believed his words and went through a fake divorce with him. He said it was a temporary measure for me and our daughter to get a better house, his so-called plan for us. I believed him. But when the house was finally allocated, he held his first love's hand and told me, "We're already divorced." Pathetic, isn't it? The me who once dug him out from a pile of corpses, the me who sold my family heirloom bracelet just to cover his medical expenses. All of that was repaid with just one sentence, "We're already divorced." Given a second chance at life, I looked at Ron Gu's indifferent face and smiled. "Fine, Ron Gu, let's get divorced." As we walked side by side out of the military compound, Ron Gu took long strides. Showing no intention of waiting for me, holding my daughter, I followed behind him, feeling like an unnecessary burden. The familiar scene, the familiar person. Everything was exactly the same as in my previous life. The sunlight stung my eyes, making them ache slightly. I lowered my head, and my daughter, soft and sweet in my arms, asked me, "Mommy, why is Daddy walking so fast?" I gently stroked her head and whispered, "Daddy has something urgent to do, let's not disturb him." Ron Gu's footsteps paused for a moment, but he didn't turn around. I knew he had heard, but he didn't care. In my previous life, I also held our daughter like this, humbly following behind him. Back then, I naively thought that Ron Gu was just bad at expressing his feelings. I believed he truly cared about us, his wife and daughter. It wasn't until later, when he appeared before me with that woman, Lacey Lynn, the star performer from the cultural troupe, that I realized how terribly wrong I had been. Lacey Lynn leaned against Ron Gu's chest and said to me in a coquettish tone, "Sister-in-law, oh no, I should call you comrade now. Thank you for letting me have Ron." Ron Gu didn't glance at me the entire time, only coldly tossing out the words, "We're already divorced, don't come bothering me again in the future." Bothering? I gave him the best years of my life, poured all my love into him, only to be accused of bothering in the end. Ridiculous and pitiful, this time. I won't let myself live as a joke anymore. At the Civil Affairs Bureau, the staff asked us, "Comrades, are you sure you want to divorce?" Ron Gu took out 2 packs of DHN men's cigarettes from his pocket, handed them to the staff, and said in a familiar tone, "Yes, we're divorcing voluntarily." The staff clearly recognized him, took the cigarette, and efficiently processed the paperwork for us. The moment we received the divorce certificate, I noticed a faint, almost imperceptible smile curling at the corner of Ron Gu's lips. He thought he was free. He thought he could now openly and justifiably be with his white moonlight, living together as a couple. I also smiled. I raised my head to meet Ron Gu's scrutinizing gaze and said word by word, "Captain Gu, congratulations, you've got what you wished for." Ron Gu froze. He probably didn't expect me to be so calm. In the past, even the slightest cold look from him would make me cry and fuss endlessly. But today, I didn't cry or make a scene. I even smiled at him. Ron Gu's brows furrowed, seemingly displeased. "What do you mean?" he asked me, holding my daughter. I took a step back, putting distance between us. "Nothing more than what the words say," I said calmly. "Regimental Commander Gu, since we're already divorced, let's each go our own way and live our own lives. I wish you a bright future, and I ask that you no longer disturb the lives of me and my daughter." With that, I stopped looking at him, picked up my daughter, and turned to leave. Behind me, Ron Gu's startled voice called out, "Where are you going?" I didn't turn back, just waved my hand. "Where to?" "To a place without you, to start my new life." "Ron Gu, in this lifetime, I won't love you anymore. You and your so-called white moonlight can just stay locked together forever." My daughter Nyan Nyan buried her head in my shoulder, her tiny hands clutching tightly at my clothes. "Mommy, aren't we going home with Daddy?" My heart ached as I kissed her forehead. "Be good, Nyan Nyan. We're going to our new home, a home with just Mommy and Nyan Nyan." Holding my daughter, I walked towards the station without looking back. In my previous life, after completing the divorce procedures, I had nowhere to go. It was still Ron Gu, with a look of charity in his eyes, who arranged for me and Nyan Nyan to stay in a damp, dark storage room in the family compound, Ron Ji said. Make do for now. Once the new house is allocated, you can move in. I endured it, for that vague promise. I endured the neighbors' gossip and the dampness that made Nyan Nyan sick. I won't be that foolish if I get to live again. Just as I was thinking, a military jeep screeched to a halt beside me, the door swung open, and Ron Ji strode over with a dark expression, grabbing my arm firmly. Had enough of your tantrum. Ron Gu's voice was low, brimming with impatience. Isn't this what you wanted? Get in the car, I'll take you back. Go back. Back where? Back to that cold, unwelcoming house that was never mine, or back to that storage room that symbolizes his charity. I shook off Ron Gu's hand, my gaze icy. Commander Gu, please behave yourself, we're already divorced. What right do you have to pull and tug at me like this? The title Commander Gu flashed a dangerous glint in Ron Gu's eyes. He was used to me calling him Ron in a gentle voice, clearly unaccustomed to this change. Cass Jiang, don't push your luck, he gritted his teeth, lowering his voice further, afraid of being overheard by passers-by. The divorce is fake. For the house, remember, I haven't forgotten. I met Ron Gu's gaze calmly, enunciating each word clearly, but I've changed my mind. I don't want the house anymore. And I don't want you either. This divorce is final. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. Ron Gu's eyes were filled with disbelief, his brows knitted into a tight knot. He stared at me intently, as if trying to find even the slightest crack beneath my calm facade. You're not this kind of person, he said, as if speaking to me, or perhaps to himself. The Cass Jiang he knew was submissive, docile, and obedient. She would never defy him like this. Nor would she ever look at him with such cold, distant eyes. I curled my lips into a mocking smile. People change. You taught me that. His expression stiffened, likely thinking of Lacey Lynn. Mommy, I'm scared. Nyen Nyen in my arms was frightened by the tense atmosphere and began to whimper softly. I patted her back soothingly. Don't be afraid, Nyen Nyen, Mommy's here. I turned to leave, but Ron Gu blocked my path once again. His patience had clearly run out. Fine, if you want to make a scene, I'll let you. But first, you must come back to the family quarters with me. A battalion commander's wife just got divorced and is wandering the streets. How does that look? She's my ex-wife, I corrected him. What others think is their business. It has nothing to do with me. More importantly, shouldn't it have nothing to do with you either? Aren't you afraid your close confidant might see this and get the wrong idea? Ron Gu's face turned alternately pale and flushed. He was probably both furious and bewildered. He couldn't comprehend my sudden change in attitude. This is perfect. Let him guess. Let him taste the same helpless confusion I felt in my past life. Get in the car. Finally shedding all pretense, he growled, reaching out to grab me. Just then, a voice cut in. Well, isn't this Comrade Cass Jiang? What a coincidence. We both turned our heads at the same time. A man dressed in slightly worn but clean cadre-style clothing was walking toward us with a gentle smile. It was Shen Haiping, the director of the neighborhood committee, someone I had little interaction with in my previous life, but in this life, he was destined to be my benefactor. Shen Haiping's gaze fell on Ron Gu's hand gripping my arm, and his smile faded slightly. Battalion Commander Gu, what's going on here? Ron Gu immediately let go as if burned, his expression stiff. It's nothing. Seizing the opportunity, I took a step closer to Shen Haiping and forced a grateful smile. Director Shen, what a coincidence. I was just about to look for you. The child and I need to apply for temporary residency. I wonder if you could help us. Shen Haiping was momentarily taken aback but quickly regained his composure. Of course, that's part of my job. But, you and Commander Gu, I lowered my eyes, adopting just the right amount of sorrowful expression. We just got divorced. Shen Haiping's gentle smile froze on his face. He looked at me, then at Ron Gu, whose face had turned ashen, his eyes filled with shock. As the director of the neighborhood committee, he had seen his fair share of domestic disputes, but a divorce involving a regiment commander was undoubtedly earth-shattering news. Divorced, Shen Haiping repeated, clearly unable to believe it. Regimental Commander Gu, this This isn't a joke, is it? Before I could speak, Ron Ji stepped in first. Forcing a smile uglier than a grimace, Director Shin, you've misunderstood. My wife, my ex-wife, she's just throwing a little tantrum. We had a minor disagreement. He was still trying to salvage the situation, still trying to maintain his perfect facade. He thought a single lie could smooth everything over. Ron Ji looked at me, his eyes filled with a stern warning, as if commanding me to play along with his act. In my past life, I would have been terrified by that look in his eyes. Immediately lowering my head to admit my mistake, obediently following him back, and continuing to live within the carefully woven lies he crafted. But now, all I feel is a chilling disgust. Hugging Nian Nian tightly, I turn to Shin Haiping, my voice trembling with just the right amount of vulnerability and grievance. Director Shin, this isn't a tantrum. The divorce papers are right here in my pocket. We just stamped them. He thinks I'm throwing a tantrum because I refuse to move into that damp, dark storage room he arranged for me after the divorce. I continued, lowering my voice even further. Nyan Nyan is still so young, and her health is fragile. I can't let her suffer with me. Every word was a dagger to the heart. I'm no longer the defenseless Cass Jiang who didn't know how to fight back. I know, in this day and age, public opinion is a weapon. A decorated officer, abandoning his wife and daughter, forcing the mother and child into a damp storage room after the divorce. This image is enough to make Ron Ji suffer the consequences. Shin Haiping's expression indeed turned serious. He is a decent man. His gaze toward Ron Ji turned sharp and displeased. Regimental Commander Ji, is what Comrade Cass Jiang said true? Ron Gu's face had turned the color of liver. I had put him on the spot. He couldn't admit it. To admit it would ruin his reputation, yet he couldn't outright deny it either. For here I stood, a living witness. That was a temporary arrangement, he stammered, his usual composure utterly gone. I had planned to, once the new housing allocation came through, new housing, I let out a soft, mocking laugh. Director Shin, perhaps you're unaware. This divorce was initiated by Captain Ji himself. He called it a sham divorce, so we could qualify as a needy separated family and get a bigger, better apartment. But once divorced, who the apartment ultimately belongs to, well, that's anyone's guess. I didn't mention Lacey Lin. It wasn't the right time yet, but I had already planted a seed of doubt. Shin Haiping was no fool. He immediately grasped the underlying implications. His expression shifted from displeasure to undisguised contempt. Ron Ji, his voice turned cold, even dropping the polite form of address. As a military officer, how could you do such a thing? This is exploiting loopholes in policy. This is irresponsible to your wife and child. Ron Gu's face flushed crimson in an instant. He was a proud man, a rising star in the military. Never before had he been publicly scolded like this, with someone pointing fingers right at his nose. He was at a loss for words and could only glare at me with murderous intensity. I met his gaze fearlessly, a surge of vengeful satisfaction welling up inside me. Ron Ji, this is just the beginning. The humiliation you're suffering now isn't even 1/10,000th of the pain I endured in my past life. I turned my head and looked back at Shin Haiping, my eyes reddening at just the right moment. Director Shin, I don't want the house. I don't want anything from him. I just want to live a stable life with my daughter. Could you help me find a place to stay? No matter how small, I can pay rent. Shin Haiping sighed. The scales had completely tipped in favor of the weaker side. Comrade Cass Jiang, don't worry, this is my duty. Coincidentally, there's a small vacant courtyard behind the neighborhood office. Not big, but clean, and it even has a yard. You and the child can move in first. My heart raced wildly. This was even better than I had imagined. Thank you, Director Shin. Thank you so much. My gratitude was utterly sincere. This is nothing short of sending charcoal in snowy weather. No, Ron Ji suddenly roared, his voice filled with panic and fury. She can't go there, Cass Jiang. You must come back with me. He finally realized that I was serious. I was truly going to leave him, in a way he had never imagined, breaking free from his control. The emotion in Ron Gu's eyes was no longer just anger. It had taken on a layer of something he himself hadn't noticed. Fear, it was the fear of losing something he had long grown accustomed to possessing. Ridiculous. What right did he have to say no? Without even glancing at him, I simply said to Shen Haiping with heartfelt gratitude, "Director Shen, that would be too much trouble for you. We mother and daughter are endlessly grateful." Cass Jiang, Ron Jiyu stepped forward, trying to grab me, his eyes looking as if he wanted to devour me alive. Shen Haiping immediately blocked his way, his face dark as water. "Regiment Commander Jiyu, what do you think you're doing? Trying to lay hands on a female comrade who just got divorced, right on the street?" Ron Gu's chest heaved violently, his eyes bloodshot. He glared at me fiercely. That gaze was no longer just pure anger, but mixed with humiliation, confusion, and a trace of panic he himself hadn't noticed. He couldn't understand how the woman who had once been so obedient to him, treating him as her entire world, could become so unfamiliar overnight. "Good, very good." Ron Jiyu squeezed out the words through gritted teeth, each one dripping with venom. "Cass Jiang, remember this day, you'd better not, ever, regret it." With that, Ron Jiyu turned abruptly, almost fleeing as he yanked open the car door and got in. The Jeep roared to life, kicking up dust as it sped away, leaving behind a choking cloud of exhaust. Ron Jiyu is gone. My hands holding my daughter were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from excitement. "I won. Comrade Cass Jiang, don't be afraid." Shen Haiping's gentle voice brought me back to reality. "With us here, he wouldn't dare to do anything to you. Come on, let me take you to see your place first." I nodded and followed Shen Haiping, heading in the opposite direction of the military compound. The small courtyard behind the neighborhood office was even better than I had imagined. A small wooden door opened to reveal a clean and tidy cement courtyard. In the corner of the yard, there is also a grapevine trellis. Although it's winter now and bare, I can imagine how lush and green it will be in the summer. The house isn't large, just one main room, a small side room, and a tiny kitchen where you can light a fire to cook. Small as a sparrow, it has all the vital organs. Everything you need is there. Most importantly, it's very quiet here. No gossip from the military compound reaches my ears, and I don't have to see anyone who might hurt me. This used to be a storage room for the neighborhood office. It was just cleared out not long ago. Shen Haiping said somewhat apologetically, "It's a bit simple, but please bear with it for now." "Not at all, not in the slightest," I quickly replied, my eyes genuinely moistening. "Director Shen, this is so much better than I imagined. You're truly a lifesaver for me and my daughter." Shen Haiping waved his hand dismissively, gave a few more instructions, and then left. In the yard, only Nyan Nyan and I remained. "Mommy, is this our new home?" Nyan Nyan peeked out from my arms, curiously examining this unfamiliar place. "Yes," I replied, setting her down and crouching to meet her at eye level. "Do you like it here, Nyan Nyan?" Nyan Nyan nodded, her tiny finger pointing at the bare grapevine. "Mommy, will it sprout in spring?" My heart felt as if something had gently bumped into it. "Yes, in spring, it will sprout. So will I. The future of Nyen Nyen and me will too." The first thing after settling in was to go to the supply and marketing cooperative. I still had some money on me, enough to last us for a while. I bought rice, flour, and even splurged on a small piece of meat. Back at the small courtyard, I lit a fire. I was busy when the courtyard gate was banged loudly. Thinking it was Director Shen, I wiped my hands and went to open the door. Standing outside was the last person I wanted to see, Ron Jiyu. He changed into casual clothes, his face still looking grim. But he was carrying a string bag filled with some fruits and canned goods. When he saw me, his lips moved slightly as if he wanted to say something. I didn't give him the chance. "What are you doing here?" I blocked the doorway, my voice as cold as ice. "Regimental Commander Jiyu." I thought I made myself clear enough during the day. Ron Jiyu probably didn't expect me to react this way. He froze for a moment before extending the items in his hand toward me. "I came to check on you. There's so much lacking here. Use these for now." His tone carried a stiffness and unease that even he seemed unaware of. It felt like a condescending attempt at comfort. I laughed. "No need." I looked at him and said word by word, "Nyen Nyen and I don't lack these things. What we lack, you can't give either." Ron Gu's hand holding the net bag froze mid-air. for the first time. His handsome face showed complete bewilderment. "What do you mean?" he asked hoarsely. "Tell me what's missing, and I'll go buy it." He still didn't understand. He thought everything could be measured and compensated for with material things. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a pang of pity. "Roan Gu, what we lack is sincerity, a home that is upright and honorable, not one obtained through scheming. It's about respect, about treating me as a living, breathing person, not a pawn to be manipulated at will." With every word I spoke, his face grew paler. "Has he ever given me any of these things? No. All Roan Gu has given me is indifference, a sense of entitlement, and that heart-wrenching betrayal." Roan Gu opened his mouth, his Adam's apple bobbing, but not a single word came out. His eyes, usually brimming with composure and authority, now held nothing but disheveled confusion. He wanted to refute, only to realize every accusation I made was undeniably true. "Take your things back." I pointed at the net bag in his hand. "Give them to someone who needs them, like your comrade, Lacey Lynn." At the mention of this name, Roan Gu's body jolted violently, as if someone had struck a nerve. "What nonsense are you spouting?" he instinctively growled, his voice betraying a hint of guilt. "Nonsense," I laughed, though the mirth didn't reach my eyes. "Regimental Commander Gu, don't take everyone for fools. You went to such lengths to fake a divorce. Wasn't it just to legitimize her position and move her into that new apartment allocated to families in hardship?" I had completely torn down the facade. There was not a shred of room for maneuver left. Roan Gu's face turned a mix of green and white, a sight to behold. He probably never dreamed that I was fully aware of what he thought was a flawless plan. How did you know?" he muttered to himself, his eyes filled with shock. "How do I know? Of course I did. I'm someone who's already died once." Just then, the gate of the neighboring yard creaked open with a squeak. A furtive-looking woman emerged, holding a basin in her hands but constantly glancing our way. It was Aunt Wang, known on the street as both a warm-hearted soul and a notorious gossip. Spotting Roan Gu at the door and then looking at me, she immediately caught the scent of juicy gossip. "Oh my, isn't this Cass Jiang? And who might this be?" Roan Gu's face instantly turned the color of liver. He cares deeply about saving face, especially in front of others. He can vent his anger at me, but he can't stand becoming gossip material for others. I ignored Aunt Wang and simply issued an eviction notice to Roan Gu. "Please leave," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Otherwise, I'll make sure all the neighbors in this courtyard hear about how you schemed against your wife and daughter for another woman and cheated to obtain government-subsidized housing." It was a blatant threat. Roan Gu's fists clenched at his sides, his knuckles cracking audibly. He stared at me with a gaze so intense it felt like he wanted to flay me alive. But in the end, he didn't dare do anything more, under Aunt Wang's curious gaze. He practically ground his teeth to dust before turning around and slamming that mesh bag onto the ground with all his might. Fruit scattered everywhere. Then, he strode away without looking back. I watched him disappear at the alley's end before closing the courtyard gate, shutting out all the noise, leaning against the cold door. I let out a long sigh. My body was exhausted, yet my heart felt unprecedentedly light. I couldn't keep relying on Director Shen forever. Nor could I sustain myself on this resentment indefinitely. Money would eventually run out. I had to stand on my own feet. But what could I possibly do? The 1980s were full of opportunities. But for a woman with a child, there were limitations everywhere. I sat on a small stool, watching Nyan Nyan happily playing by herself in the yard, lost in thought. In my past life, I gave up everything for Roan Gu. My world revolved only around him, only around family. I'm almost completely disconnected from society. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind. In my previous life, just before I died, I was very ill and couldn't eat anything. The only thing that could slightly whet my appetite was a sweet and spicy sauce I had concocted myself. That flavor, tangy and appetizing with a hint of spiciness, is incredibly delicious whether tossed with noodles or stuffed in a steamed bun. Even the nurse taking care of me couldn't stop praising it after tasting it, jokingly saying that if I were to sell this sauce, I'd surely make a fortune. Sell chili sauce. This idea, like a spark, instantly ignited my lifeless heart. Yes, just sell chili sauce. This is the only thing I can hold onto that truly belongs to me. Action is the cure for everything. The next day, as soon as dawn broke, I carefully counted all the money I had and put it in my pocket. I kissed the still sleeping Nyen Nyen and entrusted her to the care of the kind-hearted Aunt Wang next door. I then rode a rickety bicycle to the largest vegetable market in town. This bicycle was part of my dowry back then, and now it's my most valuable possession. The vegetable market in the 1980s was brimming with vibrant life. The shouts and haggling voices blended into a unique symphony. I wasn't there to wander aimlessly. My goal was clear. Fresh red chili peppers. They had to be thin-skinned yet fleshy. Purple garlic. It had to be intensely aromatic, plus soybean paste, white sugar, spices. I don't have much money, so every penny must be spent wisely. I patiently haggled with the vendors, saving a dime here and 5 cents there. In the end, I exchanged almost all my money for 2 large baskets full of raw materials. When I got home, Aunt Wang was holding Nyan Nyan, basking in the sun in the yard. Is Cass Jiang back? Oh. Buying so many peppers. What are you planning to? Aunt Wang asked curiously. I smiled and said, preparing to make some sauce for myself. I didn't elaborate further. Before anything is accomplished, any bold words would sound hollow. I washed my hands clean, then rinsed each bright red chili pepper one by one, let them dry, and together with peeled garlic cloves, placed them into a stone mortar, pounding them bit by bit. It was a laborious task, yet I didn't feel the slightest bit tired. My heart was filled with an unprecedented sense of steadiness and peace. In my past life, my hands were used for washing clothes, cooking meals, and serving men. In this life, my hands will create a future for myself and for my daughter. Red chili paste, purple minced garlic, brown bean sauce. Gradually blend together in my hands. I set up the pot and simmer it over low heat. Soon, a complex aroma of sweet, sour, and spicy wafted out from my little kitchen. It filled the entire courtyard. Even Nyan Nyan, who was playing in the yard, couldn't resist running over, clinging to the doorframe, and sniffing eagerly with her little nose. Mom, it smells so good. I smiled, scooped up a little with a spoon, blew on it to cool it down, and brought it to her lips. Nyen Nyen carefully licked it, and her eyes instantly lit up. It's delicious, Mom, it's sweet and spicy. I knew I had succeeded. Just then, the courtyard gate was knocked on again. It's Aunt Wang. She was drawn over by the aroma. Cass Jiang, what on earth are you cooking? It smells amazing. The scent is filling half the alley. She leaned in, her face full of curiosity. I generously scooped a small portion into a bowl for her. Aunt Wang, it's my homemade chili sauce. Have a taste and let me know what you think. Aunt Wang took a skeptical bite. The next second, her eyes widened. Oh my goodness, Cass Jiang, your skills are amazing. This sauce is so much more fragrant than what they sell at the supply and marketing cooperative. Delicious, truly delicious. She didn't hold back in her praise. Then, as if remembering something, she lowered her voice and said to me, by the way, Cass Jiang, let me tell you something. When I went grocery shopping today, I heard quite a few people gossiping about your families. My heart tightened. They say Colonel Gu hasn't been doing too well in the military lately. Aunt Wang said with a hint of schadenfreude on her face. I heard he got reported because he was getting too close to that Lacey Lin from the cultural troupe. The military takes conduct issues very seriously. He's probably in trouble this time. My hand holding the spatula paused slightly. Has karma come so quickly? In my previous life, the affair between Ron Jiu and Lacey Lin wasn't exposed until a year after our divorce. At that time, he had already arranged everything properly and wasn't greatly affected. Unexpectedly, in this life, because of my rebirth, this fire was ignited earlier. Aunt Wang was still rambling. What kind of mess is this? Instead of keeping such a good wife like you, he insists on getting involved with those shady characters. I didn't respond, just silently scooped the cooked chili sauce spoon by spoon into the glass jars I had prepared in advance. The scarlet chili sauce glistened temptingly under the sunlight. Roan Gu's troubles are his own business. My new life is what I should be focusing on. When Aunt Wang left, she insisted on stuffing 5 mao into my hand and took away a small bowl of chili sauce. Saying she wanted to bring it back for her husband to enjoy with his drink, I clutched the warm, crumpled banknote in my hand, staring at the row of over a dozen bottles of chili sauce, and a bolder plan began to form in my mind. Waiting passively for customers to come knocking was no long-term solution. I needed to take the initiative. Tomorrow, I would head to the first national cotton mill in the eastern part of the city. The female workers there get off work the most, and their purchasing power is the strongest. My first pot of gold will start from there. The first national cotton mill is the heart of this city. Thousands of workers toil here, and when the evening shift bell rings, a dense tide of people surges out from the gates, a sight that is truly spectacular. This is the first battlefield I've chosen. The next afternoon, I steamed a large pot of plump, white buns in advance, carefully wrapping over a dozen bottles of chili sauce in cloth. I placed them in the bike basket, with the still warm buns hanging on the other side. Then, I mounted my bicycle and set off against the wind. An hour before the end of the workday, the factory gate was already bustling with activity. The vendors selling melon seeds and peanuts, the elderly woman peddling popsicles, and the hawker offering needles and threads each occupied their prime spots. I was a new face. And what I was selling, homemade sauce, was such a novelty that no one paid me any attention. I found an inconspicuous corner, spread out a cloth, and neatly arranged the glistening bottles of chili sauce. Then, I took out my secret weapon, plain steamed buns. I broke a steamed bun into small pieces, skewered them with bamboo sticks, and dabbed each piece with a bit of my bright, tempting chili sauce. I didn't follow others in loudly hawking my wares. I just stood quietly behind my little stall. I believe good flavor speaks for itself. Time passed minute by minute, and the bell signaling the end of the workday rang. The crowd surged out like floodwaters through an opened sluice gate. They hurried along, eager to get home. Occasionally, someone would cast a curious glance, but no one stopped. My heart sank little by little. Was I thinking too simply? Just as I was about to give up, 3 female workers in uniforms passed by me, chatting and laughing. One of them was drawn to the bright chili sauce on my stall. "Oh, what's this for sale? It looks so vibrant and fiery, quite appealing," she stopped and asked. The opportunity has arrived. I immediately put on my warmest smile, picked up a steamed bun slathered with sauce, and offered it. "Sister, this is my homemade sweet chili sauce. Try it, it's free." Her companion tugged at her sleeve. "Don't eat random things. Who knows if it's clean?" The woman hesitated. I quickly said, Look at my bottle. It's been scalded with boiling water many times. Perfectly clean. Just try a small bite. If it doesn't taste good, I won't insist." My gaze was sincere and open. The woman finally relented, took the steamed bun, and cautiously took a bite. With just one bite, her eyes lit up. Delicious," she exclaimed in delight. "It's sweet and sour, with a bit of spiciness at the end. Really appetizing." She immediately turned to her companions and said, "You have to try this. The flavor is amazing." With the first brave taster leading the way, the other 2 female workers also let down their guard and each picked up a piece to taste. "Oh my, it really is delicious. This sauce would be perfect for mixing with noodles." The first woman to try it waved her hand enthusiastically. "Young comrade, how much for this sauce? The bottle is big, and it's packed with ingredients. 1 yuan per bottle." I quoted the price. The price wasn't exactly cheap, but my costs were there. And the ingredients were all top-notch. "All right, give me a bottle." The elder sister cheerfully pulled out a 10 yuan bill from her pocket. The first real deal was done. Business had officially begun. It was like lighting a fuse. The onlookers, seeing someone actually make a purchase and enjoy it so much, immediately crowded around. "Let me have a taste. How long is the shelf life of this sauce? Hey buddy, can you make it cheaper?" In front of my little stall. It was instantly packed to the brim. I deftly handed out samples while patiently answering all sorts of questions. "Don't worry, folks, it's absolutely clean and made with quality ingredients. In this weather, it'll keep for 10 days to half a month without any problem. I really can't go any lower. This is just hard-earned money for me." In just over 10 minutes, the dozen or so bottles of chili sauce I brought were completely sold out. I counted the stack of small, crumpled bills in my hand. still warm to the touch. Totaling 13 yuan and 50 cents, after deducting the costs, I made a net profit of nearly 8 yuan, In an era when the average worker's monthly salary was only 30 or 40 yuan, this was undoubtedly a fortune. My hands were shaking with excitement. I succeeded. I can really support Nyan Nyan on my own now. I carefully put the money away and was about to pack up and go home when a sharp voice rang out behind me. Well, who do we have here? Isn't this the wife of our esteemed Commander Gu? What, did Commander Gu kick you out, forcing you to sell things on the street? That voice. I turned around abruptly. Not far away, Lacey Lin was holding onto a man I didn't know, looking at me with disdain and schadenfreude. Lacey Lin's voice was sharp and harsh. If it were me from my past life, hearing such words would have made me feel so ashamed and humiliated that I'd wish to disappear into the ground. But now, I simply straightened up slowly and brushed the dust off my hands. I looked at her, even with a faint smile on my face. Comrade Lacey Lin, you've got two things wrong. My calmness took her by surprise. The smugness on Lacey Lin's face froze for a moment. First, I raised a finger, my voice clear and carrying through the surroundings. I am not Commander Gu's wife. We're already divorced. My name is Cass Jiang. I deliberately emphasized the word divorce. The crowd that hadn't yet dispersed immediately erupted in a wave of suppressed gasps. The director getting divorced. This was earth-shattering news. Lacey Lin's expression instantly darkened. Second, I lowered my hand, my gaze settling on the man she was clinging to. The man was slick-haired and powdered, his shifty eyes making it clear he was no decent fellow. I rely on my own hands to earn clean money and support my daughter. I don't consider this falling into disgrace, I call it skill. I paused, my smile deepening, but my gaze turned colder. It's far more honorable than those who scheme with all their might for things that don't belong to them. My words carried a pointed implication. Lacey Lin's face instantly turned the color of liver. She never expected that after just a few days apart, Cass Jiang, who had always been meek and timid around her, hardly daring to breathe, would suddenly become so sharp-tongued. She wanted to retort but couldn't find the words, because what I said was the truth. The gazes of those around us grew increasingly amused as they looked back and forth between Lacey Lin and me. The line between disdain and pity in their eyes was already crystal clear. You, Lacey Lin trembled with rage, pointing at me but unable to form words. I didn't bother looking at her anymore. Instead, I turned my gaze to the man beside her and deliberately asked in a tone of feigned curiosity, "Comrade Lacey Lin, weren't you always with us?" "Oh wait, I mean with Regimental Commander Gu. This comrade here looks unfamiliar. Aren't you going to introduce him to everyone?" "Shut up." Lacey Lin shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She panicked. She came today to watch me make a fool of myself. She wanted to see me impoverished and weeping after being abandoned by Roan Gu. I don't know what exactly happened between her and Roan Gu, but judging by her reaction, she clearly doesn't want Roan Gu to know about this new friend's existence. That's enough. I just want to make her life miserable too. Cass Jiang, just you wait. Lacey Lin threw down a harsh remark, unable to stay any longer, and dragged the man with her as they slunk into the crowd. Their retreating figures couldn't have been more pathetic. Watching her flee in panic, I felt a surge of satisfaction. At that moment, the older sister who had bought my chili sauce earlier came over and spat on the ground. What a piece of work. She's the one who's dirty, yet she dares to point fingers at others. Cass Jiang, don't mind her. Sis supports you. Your sauce is great. I love it. Will you be selling here tomorrow? I'll tell all the sisters in the workshop about it. That's right. We'll come back to buy more tomorrow. A few female workers nearby chimed in. A warm current surged in my heart. Thank you, sister. Thank you all. I'll come again tomorrow. I sincerely expressed my gratitude to them. These simple acts of kindness are more precious than anything else. I packed up my things, got on my bike, and headed home. The setting sun stretched my shadow very long. Never before had I felt so at ease on the way home. Yet, as I turned into our alley, my heart suddenly sank. At the entrance of the alley stood a familiar military jeep. Standing by the car was the last person I wanted to see, Roan Gu. Why is he here? What was he doing here again? My heart leaped into my throat in an instant. The bicycle beneath me felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. I clenched the brakes, and the bike came to a halt just a few meters away from him. Between us lay a stretch of ambiguous twilight glow. Ronjiu didn't move, just kept looking at me. Rongu's gaze was complex, no longer the pure anger and astonishment from previous encounters. There was something more in it that I couldn't understand. It seemed like weariness, yet also like irritation. In the end, Ronjiu was the first to speak. "Did you go to the National Cotton Mill?" His voice was extremely hoarse. I was startled. How did he know? I didn't answer his question, but instead coldly retorted, "Regimental Commander Jiu waited here specifically just to ask me this. Answer me." Rongu's tone carried an indisputable command. I laughed. "Yes, I went," I admitted frankly. "I went to sell my chili sauce to earn money and support my family. Does Commander Jiu have any further instructions?" I thought he would be furious, that he would scold me like before for embarrassing him. But he didn't. Ronjiu just looked at me silently. After a long while, he took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and took a deep drag. Amidst the swirling smoke, Rongu's face appeared even more shadowy and indistinct. "Cass Jiang," he spoke again, his voice hoarser than before. "Someone in the unit reported my affair with Lacey Lynn." He had finally admitted it with his own words, though I had known all along. Hearing it firsthand still sent a wave of absurd chill through my heart. He looked at me with a trace of inquiry in his eyes. The whistleblower letter was anonymous, but the timing, right after our divorce. "Do you know who it was?" "He suspects me." I met his gaze without flinching. "I don't know, maybe it was some righteous person who couldn't stand you." He gave me a long, searching look, as if trying to discern the truth from my face. But I was too composed. He stubbed out his cigarette and took a step closer to me. A strong scent of tobacco, mixed with the unique sharpness of his presence, rushed toward me. Instinctively, I took half a step back and tightened my grip on the handlebars. "Cass Jiang, you have to help me." When he said those words, his tone was so matter-of-fact, I froze, wondering if I had misheard. "Help you?" It sounded like the funniest joke of the century to me. "Me help you? Commander Jiu, are you serious?" I didn't make a mistake. His expression was extremely grave. "This matter has very serious implications. The organization has already spoken to me. If it's not handled properly, my career will be ruined." "So what?" I looked at him coldly. "What does your ruined career have to do with me?" "You." Ronjiu was choked by my words, his face turning red. "Cass Jiang. We were husband and wife after all. Do you have to be so heartless?" "Husband and wife?" I burst into laughter, the sound filled with tears and endless sarcasm. "Ronjiu, when you forced me into a fake divorce for Lacey Lynn's sake, why didn't you remember we were husband and wife? When you threw me and Nyan Nyan into the storage room like trash, why didn't you remember we were husband and wife? Now that your future is affected, you suddenly remember we were once husband and wife." Ronjiu was left speechless by my question, his face turning from red to pale. "I need you." Ronjiu struggled to speak, revealing his ridiculous purpose. "I need you to explain to the organization. Just say our divorce was a moment of impulse. We're planning to remarry. As long as you say it, they'll believe those reports are all nonsense." I listened quietly. Listen to this man, uttering such shameless and selfish words. I finally understand. In his heart, I was never a living, breathing person. I was just a tool. Before, I was the tool he used to maintain his perfect image. Now I am just a tool he uses to get through the crisis. When the last shred of hope completely vanished from my heart, I finally found peace. I looked at him and spoke each word with absolute clarity. "Ronjiu, listen carefully. First, I won't help you. Whether your future lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Second, there's absolutely no possibility between us. Put that thought to rest. Third, if you continue to harass me, I won't hesitate to personally verify that with the authorities." With that, I ignored his face, twisted in shock, and pedaled hard, my bicycle speeding past him. This time, I didn't look back. I only heard a suppressed growl from behind. As if someone had been driven to the brink. In that sound, there was anger, there was unwillingness, but more than anything, it carried an emotion he had never felt before, something called regret. But alas, it was too late. Returning to the small courtyard, the moment I slid the door bolt shut, all the strength in my body seemed to drain away. I leaned against the door, my back icy cold, yet my heart was pounding wildly in my chest. Over and over, I replayed Rongu's face, shocked, humiliated, and finally twisted in despair. No exhilaration, only a deathly calm, like stagnant water. The man I once loved to the marrow of my bones, whom I idolized for half a lifetime, I discovered he was merely this after all, so laughable and pitiable. I slept exceptionally soundly that night. The next day, I didn't think about Rongu anymore. His world was collapsing, while mine was just beginning to take shape. I carefully spread the money I earned yesterday on the table. Each bill is a medal of my independence. I didn't save the money. The best investment is investing in yourself. I went to the market again, and this time I bought 3 times the amount of ingredients compared to yesterday. I also gritted my teeth and bought a bigger pot and 50 brand new glass jars. I even got myself a new piece of fabric to make a small sign. It will simply say 3 words, Kasjiang sauce. Simple, clear, it's mine, and a new beginning. The process of making the sauce is still laborious, but watching the bright red sauce bubble in the pot and smelling the aroma filling the yard fills me with strength. In the afternoon, I returned to the gate of the First National Cotton Mill. This time, the scene was completely different. I hadn't even finished setting up my stall when the older sister who bought my chili sauce yesterday came over, smiling and surrounded by 7 or 8 female workers. "Comrade Kasjiang, you're finally here. We've all been waiting for you." Exactly. Yesterday, when I took the sauce home, my husband ate 3 big bowls of noodles with it. "Hurry up, give me 2 bottles. My mom asked me to bring one for her too." I didn't even have time to take out my steamed buns for a taste test. The 50 bottles of chili sauce I brought were instantly surrounded by the surging crowd. "Don't rush, everyone. There's enough for all." I was caught off guard by this sudden wave of enthusiasm, scrambling to keep up. I never expected happiness to arrive so quickly and so intensely. In less than half an hour, the chili sauce I brought was sold out again. I counted the money, my hands shaking even more violently than yesterday. Over 50 yuan, that's almost half a month's wages for Rongu. I looked at this fortune, my eyes burning with excitement. So it turns out, I really can live well on my own. "Comrade, please wait a moment." Just as I was about to pack up my stall, a middle-aged man in cadre uniform walked toward me with a smile. Behind him, 2 people in white coats followed, looking like they were from the cafeteria. "Who are you?" I asked, somewhat puzzled. "I'm the chairman of our factory's labor union. My surname is Li," Chairman Li said with a cheerful smile. "I heard from the cafeteria staff that the chili sauce you made has been very popular among our workers." I smiled modestly. "It's just a little skill I figured out on my own." Everyone's been very kind, a small craft that can win the affection of so many people. "That's true skill." Chairman Li's gaze was full of admiration. He got straight to the point. "Comrade Kasjiang, I came today to discuss a potential collaboration with you." "Collaboration?" I was taken aback. "Yes." Chairman Li gestured to the canteen director behind him. "Our factory canteen serves thousands of meals every day. We were wondering if we could place a long-term order for your chili sauce to use as a condiment in our canteen." My mind buzzed with a sudden whoosh. It felt like being hit by a pie falling from the sky. Entering the cafeteria of the National Cotton Mill. No. 1. This meant stable, large-scale orders. It meant my Kasjiang sauce would have a platform I never dared to dream of. "Of course, we won't let you suffer any losses," Chairman Li continued. "We can sign a formal supply contract. And the price will be based on the retail price you sold at today. What do you think?" My heart was pounding in my chest. I saw a golden, shining path right before me, but along with it came immense pressure. A supply for thousands of people is absolutely impossible to achieve with just this small pot and this tiny courtyard. I need a bigger space, more helpers, and more standardized procedures. Can I do it? I know, this is the most important crossroads in my life. Stepping back, I could continue with my small business and live a stable life. Moving forward, I would enter a broader world filled with more unknowns. My hand tightly clutched that scorching income. I took a deep breath. looked up, and said to Chairman Lee, "Chairman Lee, thank you for your appreciation. I'll take on this collaboration." As my words fell, Chairman Lee's face broke into an appreciative smile. He extended his hand to me. "Comrade Kasjiang, a pleasant cooperation. On behalf of the First National Cotton Mill, I welcome you aboard." I reached out and gave his hand a firm shake. Happy cooperation. On the way home, my heart was half flame, half sea. The flame was the joy of success and the longing for the future. The sea was the sober awareness of reality after calming down. The order from the National Cotton Mill was the opportunity one had always dreamed of, but also a boulder weighing 1,000 pounds, with just my small courtyard and that big pot. Even if I worked day and night, I couldn't meet the demand for thousands of people. I need a bigger place, a real place that can be called a workshop. But where can I find one? After much deliberation, a figure emerged in my mind, Shen Haiping, Director Shen. He was my benefactor, and the only elder in this city with resources whom I could turn to for help. The next day, carrying 2 bottles of the most beautifully packaged chili sauce, I knocked on the door of the neighborhood office. After hearing my purpose and the heroic feat of securing the order from the National Cotton Mill, Director Shen was so astonished that his mouth hung open for a long time. He looked at me, his eyes filled with amazement and gratification. "Comrade Kasjiang, you've truly impressed me," he praised sincerely. "Such ambition, such capability." He took a drag of his cigarette, paced a few steps in the office, then slapped his thigh. "There is indeed a place." Director Shen told me that under the jurisdiction of the neighborhood office, there was an abandoned backyard of an old soy sauce and vinegar factory that had been left unused. The space was large enough, with several well-built large stoves, but it had been neglected for a long time and needed thorough cleaning. "Don't worry about the rent, I'll apply for the lowest price for you." Director Shen patted his chest in assurance. My heart raced wildly. This was practically tailor-made for me. Under Director Shen's guidance, we arrived at that old soy sauce and vinegar factory. The yard was even larger than I had imagined, and also more dilapidated. The weeds grew taller than a person, and the walls were covered in moss. But those enormous stoves made my eyes light up. Just by cleaning up this place, my production could increase at least tenfold. "How does it look?" Director Shen asked me. "That's great," I exclaimed excitedly. "Director Shen, this is the place." As I was planning how to clean up the yard, a sudden voice rang out behind me. "Kasjiang." I would recognize that voice even if it turned to ashes. I turned my head abruptly and saw Ron Jiu standing at the gate of the courtyard. Just a few days apart, he seemed like a different person. A stubble of dark beard had sprouted on his chin, and his military uniform no longer looked crisp on him. Instead, it hung loosely, as if too large. He had grown thinner and more haggard, with sunken eyes veined with red. Ron Jiu looked at me, his gaze sweeping over the dilapidated courtyard with a complex expression before settling on my still excited face. "Are you going to make your sauce here?" Ron Gu's voice carried a hint of difficulty he himself hadn't noticed. He probably couldn't imagine that the woman who once only revolved around him was now about to start her own business in this ruin. I didn't want to bother with him. I turned to Director Shen and said, "Director Shen, let's go back and complete the formalities." "Wait," Ron Jiu called out to me. He stepped forward and stood in front of me. Director Shen glanced at him warily, instinctively moving to shield me. I heard about the state cotton mill incident." Ron Gu's eyes held a complex mix of shock, bitterness, and perhaps even a trace of envy. "You are very capable." This belated, perfunctory praise failed to stir any emotion within me. "I heard you're short on manpower." Ron Jiu looked at me, unexpectedly offering an ingratiating, almost servile smile. I can help you. I can contact my discharged army comrades. They're all strong workers." I watched him silently, looking at this once domineering man, now speaking to me in a manner I had never seen nor imagined. He was trying to please me. He was attempting, in this way, to mend the insurmountable chasm that had long existed between us. "Pity, no need," I cut him off, my voice devoid of any warmth. "Regiment Commander Jiu, my business is just starting out. The temple is small. It can't accommodate a Buddha as mighty as you. Moreover, my business is clean." I neither want nor need to be tainted by anything unclean. Rongu's face instantly drained of color, turning deathly pale. 2 years later, Director Jiang. The Southern Supply and Marketing Cooperative has doubled their order again. Our production capacity can barely keep up. Director Jiang, a reporter from the newspaper, is here. They want to write a feature story about our cast Jiang sauce. I stood in the bright and clean factory director's office, watching the workers downstairs in their uniform white work clothes bustling about on the modern assembly line. The air was filled with the familiar and comforting aroma of sweet and spicy sauce. My cast Jiang sauce has grown from a humble street stall into a well-known local brand. We have our own factory with dozens of workers, and our products are sold in several neighboring cities. Mommy, Nian, with her 2 pigtails, ran in from outside like a happy butterfly and threw herself into my arms. She has grown taller and chubbier, her little face rosy, healthy, and always smiling. Holding my daughter, I looked out the window at the business territory that belonged to me, feeling a deep sense of peace. Over the past 2 years, I've been so busy that I've hardly had time to think about the past. Ron Jiu, that name hasn't crossed my mind in a long time. I heard he was eventually disciplined by the military, demoted, transferred, sent to a remote location. As for Lacey Lin, after Ron Jiu fell from power, she quickly married a Hong Kong businessman and vanished without a trace. Their world has nothing more to do with me, until that afternoon. I was just about to leave work when the secretary knocked and entered, looking somewhat odd. Director Jiang, there's a Mr. Jiu outside asking for you. He said he's an old acquaintance of yours. My heart skipped a beat. I walked to the factory gate. Under the setting sun, a man stood there, his silhouette desolate. He wore a faded blue work uniform, with cloth shoes covered in dust on his feet. He turned around, revealing a face deeply etched by time and hardship. It's Ron Jiu. He was no longer that high-ranking officer, just an ordinary middle-aged man. He looked at me, his eyes filled with unresolvable regret and pain. I'm back, Ron Jiu said hoarsely. I just wanted to see you, to see Nian. We're fine, I said flatly, my tone distant yet polite. I know. Ron Jiu forced a smile uglier than tears. Cass Jiang, I've heard everything about you. You're 100 times, 1,000 times more capable than I ever imagined. I watched as his eyes gradually reddened. I'm sorry. He spoke those 3 words with such weight, such hesitation. Cass Jiang, in the past, I was a scoundrel. I was blinded by greed, and I was the one who threw away the most precious thing in my life with my own hands. His voice choked with emotion, a man in his 40s, crying like a child before me. I regret it, Cass Jiang. These past 2 years, not a single day has passed without regret. I've missed you to the point of madness. Missed Nian until my heart ached. I went to see Lacey Lin, and I slapped her, not because she lied to me, but because she made me realize how blind I was. Cass Jiang, can you forgive me? Can we remarry? I don't want anything. I'll work like a horse for you. I'll guard the gate for you. Just let me stay by your side, he pleaded humbly. How familiar this scene was, only, our positions had completely reversed. I watched him quietly, feeling neither hatred nor love in my heart. Not even pity remained. I simply felt that the person before me was a stranger. Ron Jiu, I said calmly, I've received your apology. A glimmer of hope flickered in his eyes. I continued, but it's too late. That tiny flame was instantly extinguished. I don't need anyone to serve me like a beast of burden. Nor do I need anyone to guard my gates. My factory has security, and my home, just me and Nian, is enough. I pointed not far away, where Shen Haiping was holding Nian's hand, saying something to her, both of them laughing happily. Director Shen is now a consultant at my factory and has watched Nian grow up, becoming her dearest grandpa Shen. You see, we're doing just fine. Without you, we're doing even better. As for forgiveness, I shook my head. I haven't forgiven you. I've just let myself move on. I no longer hate him, because he's no longer worth any of my emotions. I turned and walked toward my daughter and the future under the setting sun, never looking back.